It is now my pleasure to introduce Tim Webb, MBE, who is to be admitted as an Honorary Fellow of Bruford College. Tim will be retiring as Artistic Director of Oily Cart Theatre Company this year. Oily Cart has worked with the college for a number of years, and Tim has led a multi-sensory theatre residency each year in association with us. As director and writer, Tim co-founded Oily Cart 37 years ago to make theatre for children under 6 and for young people with complex learning difficulties, including those on the autism spectrum. Last year, the London-based company took its Shakespeare adaptation of In a Pickle to Manhattan, Brooklyn and Denver, and this year it's touring a new show based on Coleridge's poem Kubla Khan, a version of which is tailored to deaf-blind audiences, as well as Splish Splash, a truly immersive piece set in a hydrotherapy pool of special schools. Chair of Governors, I am pleased to present Tim Webb, MBE, to be admitted as an Honorary Fellow of Bruford College.
By virtue of the powers invested in me, I am delighted to admit Tim Webb, MBE, as Honorary Fellow of Bruford College.
Hello. Yes, Bruford and I go back a long way, and it's been a very influential relationship on me, although I was never a student here. I did teach for a while on the community theatre course, along with Stuart Bennett, who was a great man, mentioned earlier, and he, in particular, was a great influence on me. And I'd also like to take up a theme that Bernie mentioned, which was don't sit and wait for the phone to ring. What we've always done in the Oily Cart is we've actually sought out audiences that we thought didn't have an audience, find out what we thought might work for them, and then refine a form of theatre that we thought would be good. So we actually, when I say we, I'm really kind of like a part of a trinity, really, because the Oily Cart is really Claire de Lune, who's sitting over there, and Max Reinhardt, who's now a Radio 3 DJ, but back in those days was a guitar strummer. And we made a company with the idea of actually having a day job while we wrote a hit West End musical, because we thought this would be the shortcut to fame and an idle lifestyle somewhere sunny. So we looked around and we found there was an audience called Children Under 5. And back in the 1980s, there was very little for them. A bit of balloon modelling, a little bit of dolly waggling. And we thought we can do better than this. So we made shows and they were much appreciated. That's what got us into trouble, because the head teacher of a special school in London came to us and said, could we do one of our under 5 shows for the young people in his school? And because we were sort of age appropriate, we said, how old are the children in your school? He said, they're from 3 to 19. And we thought, we've got a show about plastic ducks. How can we do this show for people who are 19 years old, no matter what score they got on whatever test? So he said, well, why don't you come and work with them for a week? And that was the great week, really, in the whole making of the Oily Cart, because we met the people, and they extended from people who could walk and could talk and were going to leave school and live reasonably independent lives, to people who needed care with every activity in their day: eating, drinking, getting changed, washing, everything. They were not ambulant, they were not articulate, and we somehow had to think of a form of theatre that would work for this huge audience. Okay, so we started off doing shows which there were elements that would fit with anybody somewhere along the line. But we got particularly interested in the work for people for whom there was very little alternative provision. People who might not be able to see, who might not be able to hear, who might be deaf-blind, people who had intellectual impairments to the extent that they couldn't remember what had happened half an hour ago, nor anticipate what was going to come next from what was happening to them now. And we thought, oh, how do you make a form of theatre that's going to communicate through those barriers? And we thought, well, we've got to look at senses other than seeing and hearing. So we started to develop a theatre that was about scent, and that was about taste, and that was about the movement of the body in space. Because if you can't see, you can't hear, and then that is one thing that will communicate with you. You know, imagine putting somebody on a swing or swinging them in a hammock. That was the first thing we did. And we found that live music was very important, particularly live music in low registers, because it was about the vibration as much as what you heard. And slowly, and it's still going on after 37 years, we have evolved a theatre that can communicate with people who are deaf-blind, who cannot see, who cannot hear, but who cannot, as I say, they've got intellectual limitations. They might not know where their body ends and the rest of the world begins. They need help with so many activities. And the satisfaction that we get out of communicating with people who are often so alone in the world because of their difficulties with communication, but we somehow manage to get through. At least we get through often enough to make it all worthwhile. And we work in hydro pools because it's a very comfortable environment. We work flying amongst the acrobats of Occam's razor, in which the young people are in comfortable, safe seating, and they are flying with the people on the flying trapeze. And the work has been picked up by companies in the United States, in Russia, and in Japan particularly. There is tremendous need, but that need came in our way because we were looking for audiences that we could make work for. And thankfully, we succeeded. And I am actually retired now. I retired last night, never mind this year. And so this will be one of my last acts as Oily Cart Artistic Director. But I know there are people out there, definitely, who are going to be taking the road we've taken. And I wish them the very best of luck, and with everything Rose Bruford has done to support your efforts as young people. Just takes a bit longer than you think, actually. That would be my catchphrase. All right. Thank you.